Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope you are having a fabulous morning already. Do you ever just have one of those days where you just can't seem to get it together? Good morning. So, Wellness Warriors, if you're just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I am a mom, a nana, a girlfriend, a wellness advocate, a grad school student studying for my Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. Good morning, Miss Sarah. I am a runner, a jazzerciser, and I started Wellness Wednesday because I have been battling a lifelong battle, basically, with depression and anxiety. I consider myself to be in recovery, but if you've followed on a regular basis, you know that recovery is a loose term and that sometimes we just go backwards a little bit. But the most important thing is that we learn from each of our lessons. And when we share what we've learned, sometimes we can help others. And that's the purpose of Wellness Wednesday. So if you're here, let me know you're here. And if you don't see this till afterwards, hit hashtag replay in the comments or ask a question or drop a comment. Oh, thank you, Sarah. I don't even know what to say to that. That makes my heart so happy. And I think you're pretty awesome too. Especially, I've come to the conclusion that Sarah should start a dating service for animals that need to be rescued or adopted. She is amazing at that. And she definitely sees the best and shows you the best picture that you can possibly have. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so last week we talked about not believing everything you think. And today we're going to build on that a little bit. We talked a little bit about how sometimes the thoughts we have, they just aren't true. And it's our brain's way of protecting us, of keeping us in our comfort zones, etc. Today we're going to build on that a little bit. For example, have you ever felt like you're working your butt off, but you're not seeing results? And this can be broad spectrum, y'all. This can be just about anything. So last week we talked about not believing everything we think. And today we're going to talk about how those thoughts can stop progress before it starts. So let's get started. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please drop them. However, I don't always see all the things when I'm live. So if I don't respond to you or don't acknowledge you, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because I didn't see it. And I will answer after I am done. So let's talk about the hidden growth timeline. In fitness and weight loss, the rule of thumb is 3 weeks to feel it, meaning our energy levels, our mood, we can feel its impacts as soon as 3 weeks. It takes 6 weeks to see it ourselves, which means, for example, our clothes fit better. We might be starting to see something different in the mirror than what we were before. In my case, less stomach distension, things like that. But it takes 8 weeks for others to notice and start asking questions like, have you lost weight? Are you doing something different? You look different. So that's kind of the rule of thumb with weight loss or fitness. But it's not just there that this applies. And not necessarily this specific timeline as in 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, but it's just kind of an idea. This happens in relationships. Trust and closeness take time, especially if at some point that trust or closeness has been severed. In our careers, we have to build skills before we can get promoted most of the time. Because a lot of times if we don't, then we're building it on the fly. And I've been in that kind of situation before. And especially in this case, in personal growth, mindset shifts take time. In my case, it took years of introspection, years of learning, trial and error. Sometimes things I really wasn't even aware I was doing, and things that I wasn't doing for the sake of a mindset shift, like running led to better eating, less anxiety. And as I started to see those connections, I started working harder on that angle. Even if you're in business, whether it's a brick and mortar business, whether it's an online business like my activewear boutique, things take time. They take time. They take consistency. And they keep doing the same things. They take doing the same things every single day, or most days consistently. and building from that in order to see results. It may seem on social media like somebody we know, lost 10 pounds overnight, or boomed in their online business overnight, or whatever the case may be. But a lot of times, good morning, Miss Stacy, there's more to it. There's more behind that, that we don't see, because social media tends to be kind of a highlight reel, right? We don't always like to talk about the things, good morning, Miss Carla. We don't always like to talk about the things that, the stumbling blocks and the things that get in our way. I try to occasionally, when I'm on Facebook, but we always love to post the highlights, right? So good things take time. There is a hidden growth timeline. And while the rule of thumb for weight loss or fitness may be 3 or 6 or 8 weeks, that is not always the case with all of these other things. So the bottom line is that results take time, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And if we give up on them too soon, which is not uncommon, a lot of times when we give up too soon, we give up right before the big breakthrough. And no, I can't tell you when that big breakthrough is going to be. Most of the time, I don't know when it's going to be for myself. But there's an interesting story that you've probably heard, you may have heard, and it's from a book, which I have. I haven't read it yet, but I have it. It's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And it's the story of Darby and the gold mine. So paraphrased, R.U. Darby and his uncle invested in a gold mine during the Colorado gold rush. After weeks of digging, they struck gold. They mined a few loads, but they soon hit a wall where that gold vein seemed to just disappear. So they were frustrated, and they believed they exhausted the mine, and decided that it was easier to just go get a job with a regular paycheck, and sold their equipment to a junk dealer and walked away from it. And that's not uncommon. That's not uncommon when almost anything we start out with, sometimes there's like an illusion of an instantaneous result. A new relationship looks great, looks like that's the one forever. An online business, maybe your first month or two, your sales are crazy good. And then the novelty kind of wears off, for lack of a better way to put it. Or a career, you get a new promotion and, you think you've made it. But there's a novelty period, or what is some people call the honeymoon period, that once it wears off, that's when the real work begins. That's when the real work begins. And if we're not prepared to do that work, we have a tendency to abandon things that with just a little bit of work might have been completely different. So what happened was the junk dealer, who was curious and determined, and again, this is a paraphrasing of the story that's in the book, hired a mining expert who discovered the gold vein was just 3 feet. 3 feet, y'all. 3 feet. 3 feet. From where Darby and his uncle stopped digging. Think about that for a second. The junk dealer became incredibly wealthy, while Darby and his uncle walked away just short of success. Okay? So the point is that sometimes the breakthrough is just around the corner. And like I said, no, we don't know when that's going to be. You can't always see progress, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. And that's what this boils down to, is whether it's in fitness, whether it's in personal growth, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in online business, careers, whatever. Personal growth, even faith, sometimes the results may be closer than we realize. And when we've come that far and we've done that work, do we really want to just throw in the towel? So what's involved here is having faith in what's the unseen. And you guys know that I'm careful about how much I talk about faith and religion, which to me are not the same thing, and spirituality on Wellness Wednesday. But this is important. So if you are a believer, then you may be familiar with Mark 11:24, which says, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer," and I might get teary here because I've seen this happen, "believe that you have received it and it will be yours." And this was kind of a breakthrough for me when a mentor of mine kind of presented it as, even in prayer, we're supposed to ask as if we've already received it. And the point here is that it reminds us to trust the unseen, which can apply whether you believe in God, whether you need to believe in yourselves, the universe, whatever your beliefs are. This can apply across the board to belief in ourselves, to confidence that hard work will eventually pay off, or any of those things. For example, let's find some examples that are not faith related necessarily. Oxygen. We know it's there. We believe in it. We use it every day, but we can't see it, right? And that's usually the first example that anybody gives in a discussion like this. But let me throw some more at you. Wi-Fi and cell signals. We believe in them. We know they're there. We can't see them except for that little gauge on our phones that tells us it's there, or on our computers that tells us it's there. But we can't actually see the signal itself, right? Sometimes it's frustrating when we think it's supposed to be there and it's not. But you kind of get the idea. Sound waves, that's another thing. We know they're there. We hear them. We can't see them. Magnetism, the impacts of magnetism, they're there all the time. We don't see it. Electricity, emotions. Sometimes we see those emotions, but there's a lot of emotions we don't see, especially when we're trying to put on a happy face and we're not showing them, right? So all of those things are things that we know are there, and we believe they're there, and we use those things daily, or we encounter those things daily, but we can't see them. So we just have to trust that that's what's really happening, right? So I wanted to give a personal story of what it means to stay committed, but I could literally talk all day about this, so it was hard to choose something. So I'll start with Wellness Wednesday. With Wellness Wednesday, there's gauges and there's measurements, and it's like how many views and how many comments and how many whatnot. But for me, Wellness Wednesday, when I first started, there was only a small handful of people that were watching. Now there's a lot more, but I don't always know they're there. And I have said repeatedly with Wellness Wednesday that if one person benefits from my message each week, then it's worth the time and it's worth the effort to me. But sometimes, and I mentioned this, I think last week, maybe the week before, sometimes I will find out quite by accident. I will stumble across somebody that was like, oh yeah, you said in your Wellness Wednesday, 3 weeks ago that blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, you watched that? Because I can't see them. I don't see them when they watch it. I don't always know it's there. But it's an affirmation for me that this is important, that what we do here every Wednesday morning when we interact and we engage and we talk about things that will help us be better, that this helps someone. And in the rule of customer service is for every one person that speaks up, there's 10 more that don't, and that could be good or bad. So for me, if one person speaks up and says that it helped them, that means there may be 10 more that I had no idea were watching it, that felt the same way. So that's an example of staying committed. So I keep doing this every single week because I love it. It's on my heart to do it. And I just know that somewhere somebody needs to hear that message that day. Another example is it's a cream I use, and I won't get into the details here, but the premise of the cream that I use is for hormonal balance. I am postmenopausal. We've talked about the big M before. But the premise of this cream and the way it's promoted is, listen, it took you years to get screwed up hormonally. It's going to take some time to get back on track. And that was the case here. And I stayed committed even though I wasn't always seeing results. I would see something new here and there and became a believer in it. But all of a sudden, say, and this is what I was talking about earlier, where sometimes it seems like results happen overnight when we don't see what's behind that. And it's really a series of consistent daily habits, consistent daily belief in trusting in the process that tells us that we will have that breakthrough. And in this case with the cream, I recently hit just over a year that I had been on it, and almost like clockwork, it was like a switch flipped. And I've had that a couple other times with other things, like a switch flipped. And all of a sudden I started taking a little weight off, and different things started happening. I started having less stomach trouble. And like I said, I won't get into all the details. If you want to know more about that, just message me and we can talk about it some more, but you get the idea. And the same thing with my work on anxiety and depression. A lot of people are like, how did this happen for you? And in my mind, it feels like it was an overnight thing. Like I studied this one thing, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, in my last class of my bachelor's study, and the timing was just right that all of a sudden everything clicked. And that is how it felt like, not just for me. It doesn't just sound like that for you when I talk about it. It sounds like that to me too, but that's not what happened. There was literally years of work, a little bit here and a little bit there, chipping away at those toxic patterns that I had developed until all of a sudden it seemed like all of a sudden there was a mindset shift, when that mindset shift had been happening all along. And those responses, I had been working on those anxiety and depression responses all along, and doing things that made my mood better, and they all took time. So we have to give ourselves grace. I've been saying that a lot lately, and we have to trust the process. So that's the best personal examples that I can give you of what I'm talking about here. And I hope you found that helpful. So like the song says, the waiting is the hardest part, right? The waiting is the hardest part, and it's hard to stay on course. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, I have many mentors, business and otherwise, that will tell you that things that are not tracked can't grow. And I don't necessarily believe that to be true. But the real concept behind that is that it's harder to see the growth if you're not keeping track. A lot of times when it comes especially to mindset shifts and personal growth, all of a sudden one day we look backwards and we're like, oh my gosh, I was here and now I'm here. You know what I mean? And again, it seems like it happened overnight when that's not the case. So like I said, I don't know that, and maybe there's some truth to that, I guess if you're in business, if you're not tracking your numbers, you can't grow your numbers. If you don't know where you are, you can't go upward. And there's a similar concept there with what I'm saying here too. So give me a second and I'm going to expand on that a little bit more, because I think I got a little bit ahead of myself. So how do we stay the course when we're frustrated, when we feel like the process isn't working? Number one, we got to celebrate the small wins. Every single small win, y'all. Every single one. Even if we're celebrating it with ourselves. It doesn't mean you have to post every good thing that happens on Facebook or on any other social media, but you got to pat yourself in the back when you have a win, when you have an accomplishment. Even if and I've talked about this before too, we have a tendency to hit a goal and then go, okay, what's next? And we don't stop and breathe in that we've made that accomplishment, that we've done that thing. So when we don't celebrate those small wins, it's hard to see that we are making progress when in fact it's right in front of us. So we got to celebrate the small wins. So anytime you're feeling a little stronger, good morning. Anytime you're feeling a little stronger in a situation you didn't feel strong in before. Anytime you're feeling a little calmer in a situation that normally brought you anxiety. Anytime you're feeling a little more confident where you were before. When I had like almost crippling social anxiety, this was a big deal. Every time I got through something that I was terrified to do, I got a little bit stronger. It chipped away a little bit. I had a relationship where when I came out of it, I felt, basically I was afraid to wipe my own butt. My self-esteem was in the toilet, and I can't necessarily blame that all on that person. But the nature of the relationship was such that it just really was not good for me. And this crazy strong girl who wasn't afraid of anything had suddenly become afraid to even so much as cook a meal that didn't come out of a box. Good morning, Miss Amanda. I'm not sure if I have Greg or Darla Kell on here, but whichever one of you it is, good morning. So in any case, after that relationship severed, that person would come back and push buttons they knew were easy to push. Good morning, Miss Christie. And they would push guilt buttons, and they would be like, oh, well, I did this and you didn't do that. And I did this and I did this and I didn't get anything out of it. And it took a long time to step up to that. I would usually just come away from those conversations feeling defeated and feeling less than and feeling like I was unworthy, until I started focusing on facts and started hitting that person back, proverbially speaking, with facts when they would start this conversation. And again, something I won't get into the details of, but here's the truth of it. One of my favorite examples is that they left with nothing but the shirt on their backs, and that we didn't have anything that left me with everything. And I finally got aggravated, and I took an inventory one day of everything we had and what it was worth. Most things at that point, most of our possessions had been donated, or gotten for free or given to us or whatever. And I said, I finally got a little nerve. I got mad enough, and I got a little nerve that the next time this conversation started, I said, you know what? I hear what you're saying, and I took an inventory of everything we have, and what we have amounts in about $600 in value total. Good morning, Miss Debbie. So if you'd like to come so basically we didn't have crap, and if you'd like to come get your half of crap, you're welcome to come do so. And I know that seems harsh, but again, this is a conversation I'd be dealing with for months that had been making me feel some type of way, some type of guilt, some type of lack of confidence and feeling of unworthiness. And when I took that conversation and I turned it into truth, and I took one tiny step to take back some of my self-confidence, it changed the game. And it was the hardest the first time. That baby step was the hardest the first time. So celebrate your small wins. Anytime you feel a little bit stronger, anytime you've handled a situation better, and I don't mean better by punching somebody's lights out or whatever, but better than you would have before. Anytime you feel like you've been calmer or, again, more confident. Anytime you're struggling with social anxiety and you get out there and you go to that mixer, or you get on that stage and speak, do that thing that you're terrified of, and get through it, and nobody dies. Nobody gets hurt. You know what I mean? And you're able to do it. Those are wins worth celebrating. So the way to stay on course when you feel like you're not seeing the progress is to celebrate those little wins. And another way that we do that is to record it. We gotta record it. Just like that number that isn't tracked doesn't grow. You can't see the progress if you're not making a note of it somewhere. So record it. Write down your victories. You can journal them. Even tiny ones. One of the things that I love about the gratitude box, and you guys have heard me talk about the gratitude box before, but just in case you need a reminder, here it is. And here's the memo pad of little pieces of paper that sits near my desk, and almost every single day. Let's be real. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I do 2 or 3 days at once. Every single day I pull a piece of paper off of here and I write down the date and something good that happened that day. And I put it in this box so that I can review it at the end of the year. Now, that gratitude can be anything. It can be being grateful for being alive that day. I like to look for little things that I'm not normally grateful for, unusual things. But I always write down when I've had some kind of win. Like when I turned in that paper that I thought was terrible and I ended up getting full points on it for grad school. Those things get written down because they remind me later. And remember, I talked last week about how we go find proof of whatever our beliefs in ourselves are, right? If we believe that we can't do anything, we'll find proof of it. Or if we believe that we're bad at something, we'll find proof of it. And if we believe that we are good at things, we'll also find proof of that. And here is where you can record your proof. So the gratitude box is huge for me. I've been doing it for a few years. I can't take credit for the idea, but I've definitely shared it as much as possible because I think it's an amazing way to change the way you look at things. So we got to celebrate our small wins. We got to write them down because then when we look back, we can see the progress. A great example of something I used to do before I had apps and things like that to track running is I for a long time when I was trying to train for half marathons, I felt like I couldn't get my time any faster. I felt like I was slow on short runs and I felt like I was slow on fast runs. So I started writing down every single day that I ran. I kept a calendar in my bathroom where I could see it all the time. And I started writing down how far I went that day, what my pace was, how I felt, so on and so forth, etc. And even though I didn't always feel like I was making progress, one day I'm like, today's run felt really strong. So I started looking back at where I'd been. And once I had started tracking that, it was a lot easier to see where I had been versus where I was and see the improvement. Even though on a day-to-day basis, I didn't necessarily feel like there was, Because sometimes when we're in the forest, we only see the little trees. We don't see the big picture, right? So write down your victories, even the tiny ones. Keep it on a calendar, keep it in a journal, keep a gratitude box. Make a note of that stuff somewhere. That even if that's how you celebrate it. Even if you don't take the time to pat yourself on the back, but you write down on that little memo pad, hey, I got an A on today's paper, whatever the case may be. You know, boss gave me a big kudos, got that promotion today. All those things that we don't pay attention to on the daily, write them down somewhere so that when you reflect back, because remember, I don't care who you are, wherever you are now at some point in time, you wanted to be that person. Okay, that's really important. At some point in time, you wanted to not have a problem that you don't have anymore, or you wanted to have something, a skill, a belief, an ability, something that you didn't used to have that you have now. And it's important to record that so that you see it. Okay, the other thing that you can do to help stay on course is surround yourself with encouragers. I'm a huge fan of that word. The first support group I ever went to was called the Encouragers, so that's always stuck with me. Encouragers can be friends, mentors, connections, Facebook friends, whatever. People, you know, the person you see every day when you're out on your morning walk, that says, hey, how you doing? Nice morning, whatever, that you pass every day at the same time. Whatever that looks like, surround yourself with encouragers, not the ones that tell you you can't. Because the ones that tell you can't, or the ones that tell you crazy, or the ones that don't believe in what you're trying to do, whatever that is, they're going to feed those negative thoughts and those self-doubts that are constantly trying to replay and grab a hold again in the background. So those are people, and sometimes we can't avoid them, but we can limit, we can keep them at arm's length, and we can limit, we can change our response to them and not let them rent space in our head. So surround yourself with the people that make you feel good, with the people that make you happy. I've talked many times about that friend of mine, who when I first started spending time with them, they were just so positive about everything. Even when she was angry, she was still smiling, and still and I wanted to be like her. And the more time I spent with her, the less I tolerated negativity in other parts of my life. And I attribute that relationship with a lot of my mindset shift, because the more I started to see positive and be exposed to positive, the more I wanted it, the more I craved it, and the more I worked to find it. So surround yourself with encouragers, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's people within your church, people within an organization that you volunteer in, like I said, your friends, your family, your mentors, the people that you call family, even if they're not related, whatever that looks like. Surround yourself with the people that believe in you, and that it doesn't really matter what you do. If you believe in it, they're going to support you. And I don't mean that, you know, sometimes there's a case of false friends where people just tell you whatever you want to hear because they don't want to argue with you. But if you're working on a mindset shift, if you're working on improving yourself, your people will support that. They will encourage that. Good morning, Miss Kayla. So again, things that are not tracked can't grow. Celebrate your wins. The more you make notes of those, and the more you find a way to record those and celebrate those, the more you will see your progress as you go, instead of feeling like you're spinning your wheels. Not only that, but when you're doing that tracking, sometimes you can see little things and you're like, oh, you know what? But if I would have done that this way instead of that way, it could have resulted in this. It's just easier to not only see your progress, but see places where you may have impeded your progress if you're tracking things, if you're writing it down somewhere and kind of keeping track. Okay, so my challenge, last week I'm going to wrap it up here. Last week I issued a challenge, and it was to write down one self-limiting belief and rewrite it. Something that you thought you couldn't do and later proved yourself wrong. So I don't know if y'all did that because I didn't hear from anybody. But remember, when I issue these challenges, you can drop a comment or you can just message me so that I can kind of hold you accountable. So if you didn't do that, if you didn't write down one self-limiting belief and rewrite it, something that you thought you couldn't do and later proved yourself wrong, go ahead and do that now. Or whenever you come back, sorry. Goodness. Whenever you come back and look at this again to take notes or whatever, but do it now. And then I want you to, once you've done that, I want you to reflect on where you're waiting for results. weight loss, fitness, relationships, mindset, solutions, job promotion, new business, online business to take off, whatever that looks like. Commit to one step forward on that this week, whatever that looks like, and trust that growth is happening even if you cannot see it. So write down a self-limiting belief, rewrite it. That's from last week. Hopefully you did that. If you did, then the next step is to reflect on where it is that you're waiting for results. Where are you waiting for something to change, something to shift? And then one tiny step towards that, whatever that looks like. If it looks like getting somewhere on time, leaving 5 minutes earlier to do that, whatever that little step is, maybe getting up and praying before you get out of bed or as soon as you get out of bed instead of picking up your phone first, whatever that looks like, commit to one step toward whatever the result is that you're waiting on this week. And trust that growth is happening, because you have to believe that it's there. And a lot of your success is going to depend on that small daily habit that you are doing that works toward that, even if you're not seeing the results. So that's my challenge to you this week. Shoot me a message, drop a comment, whatever it is, let me know how that's working for you. And remember these final things before I let you go. Just like I said last week, and just like I will always say, how you talk to yourself is the biggest impact. We've talked about this before. You're inside your own head. You're the first person you talk to every day, last person you talk to every day, besides whatever your beliefs are. How you talk to yourself has one of the biggest impacts. And many of my mentors also quote the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Small habits, when repeated consistently, lead to remarkable results. Nothing worthwhile happens instantly. Have you heard all these before? These all sound familiar, right? There's a reason, and it's because they are true. And finally, in the immortal words of Dory the fish, just keep swimming. Because I promise you, your breakthrough is around the corner. I don't know which corner. You're not going to know which corner until you've gone around it. But you have to trust that it is happening. I'm so glad you found this helpful, Sarah. And I know that I know you of all people can definitely trust the process, even though you might be like me and be a little impatient about it. Okay, so if you found this helpful, please share, especially if you think someone else will. And I hope you all have a fabulous Wednesday. I'm not sure what I'm talking about next week. I'm toying with a couple different topics, but as soon as I know, you will. And I hope that you all have an amazing day, an amazing week, and most of all, be well. Bye.